Okay to get started? Can I confirm at least that the panelists can hear me in the earphones? Yeah, so you'll need to have the earphones to hear anything. If I speak, okay. I'll try not to shout. But can I confirm from someone in the audience that you can hear this coming through? Excellent. So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining our session this morning, which will be on humanitarian mine action. You can hear? We're lucky to have with us a distinguished panel of senior representatives that will help us explore the interlinkages between humanitarian protection and economic social recovery of communities. And we'll be discussing the significant impact of mines and explosive ordnance on the people of Ukraine. We will seek to look at how these risks can be managed based on the strategic leadership provided by the government, emphasizing the significant challenges that the country is facing even as... Is it not working? It's okay, even as they defend themselves from the invasion. We also hope to look at some of the positives that have come out of the partnerships and some of the opportunities presented by the new innovations which are springing up as a result of all the work being done. My name is Rory Logan. I'll be facilitating this event. I'm a head of division at the Geneva International Center for Humanitarian Demining. I've been working with Ukraine and the Ukrainian governments on mine action since about 2016. And I oversee all of our operations in the country at the moment. In a second, the session will start with a presentation from our first Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Economy, Yuliia Svyrydenko, followed by some reflections from our distinguished panelists and some interventions from the floor. Ideally, and if possible, we'll take time for questions at the end, but we have been told that we're on very, very strict timings today, so please bear with us on that one. And without much further ado, please could I hand over to Madam Deputy First Prime Minister to give us an overview of progress since last year's recovery conference in London. Thank you, Yuliia.
I would ask my colleagues to assist me in the presentation. Good morning. And I would say actually it's one of the most important issue in terms of reconstruction. I would say that it's a zero stage for reconstruction and recovery. So that's why we pay so much attention to the mining activity for setting up a strategy for the mining activity for the next few years, because we understand that it's not just a question of clearance of mines or explosive devices. It's a chance to save people's lives. And it's about enabling farmers to work in Kherson region. It's about enabling children to return in Kharkiv school, or to enable our doctors in my native Chernihiv to feel themselves safety at work. So that's why I think it's a crucial issue that should be discussed here, and I'm very grateful to the organizer of this conference that we pay attention and we add to the agenda the humanitarian clearance, the mining issue, humanitarian demining. And currently Ukraine, as you know, is the most potentially contaminated country. So 144,000 square kilometers under subsection. And it means that the mine contamination of this area puts 6.1 million people at risk. So it means that for now we have 970 reported cases of mine injuries, among whom 100 children that have been injured. So it means that if we don't act collectively, by 2013, so we've got 9 million people that is going to be under these risks. And according to the Tony Blair Institute that assists us in setting up strategy in providing the mining activity, landmines have resulted in annual GDP losses of $11 billion for Ukraine. So this is equivalent to 5.5 of Ukraine's total GDP in 2021. So it's also the question of economic recovery as well. So this challenge require from us a long-term planning, and that's why we have developed a strategic framework. It calls Mine Action Strategy. And I'm sincerely grateful to all partners that have been participating. I look at this audience and I see that at each row I see our partners that was involved in the drafting of this Ukraine mine action strategy, and we are ready to take on board more partners, so to have more joint efforts. And it was a long way, but now the documents is on the way to adoption. And this mine action strategy, it has three main strategic goals. So the core is, of course, protect people and to restore safety in communities. It means mine risk education, provide social support and reintegration of the victim of explosive ordnance. The second thing is, of course, to like me, like a Minister of Economy, it's extremely important to return land to productive use, and this includes systematic, non-technical, and technical survey. It includes development of the mining market. It's something new. But we, as promised, we have launched the program, and we, like a government, refund up to 80% of the cost for the mining activity. So it's, let's say, rather innovative approach. We'll see what will be the impact for economy. We will evaluate it at the end of the year. But I think this experience can be shared globally with other countries facing the same challenges. And the third way, ensuring effective mine action system management for task prioritization, data management, and resource allocation. And we're working on strengthening our own institutional capacity. And in April, we'll appointed a director for the Center for Humanitarian Demining, and we will work towards achieving the strategic goals. And I'm trying to be briefly, yes. As a strategy is a long-term vision for the next year. We have already been working on an implementation plan for the next 3 years. You might see it on the presentation, but we will ensure the protection of victim assistance. We would help farmers in the mine of agricultural land, and we, as I said, we have already launched a compensation mechanism, and we allocate $75 million for 2024 for a state support mechanism for farmers, and invite partners to join this initiative and support. And of course, we need innovation in non-technical and technical survey, and we need innovation in finance too to ensure sustainable of mine action. And we work with international experts to develop a front-loading facility for mine actions that will benefit not just for Ukraine, but also other mine-affected countries. And of course, for it to succeed, we need donor champions to commit. And our goal is to protect people and to support the economy in regions. This is why localization of mine action equipment, partnership with Ukrainian producers of equipment, components and spare parts is very important to us, because we have also we have an economic policy. It's called Made in Ukraine. So now we are trying to incentivize our foreign partners to localize their production of heavy machines for the mining, to localize other equipment within the country, because it can also help to sustain the economic growth within regions. And of course, our goal is to build sustainable and long-term support of our partners based on strategic priorities. And I just will show briefly. We'll show the results that we have. So 30,000 square kilometers, we managed to return to productive use since the full-scale invasion. Believe me, it's a huge number. It's 17 or 11% of the potentially contaminated area. So it means that we succeed a lot last year and during this several months of 2024. And just 12,000 square kilometers are land that we surveyed and cleaned over the last months. So with joint efforts with our partners, we start a non-technical survey in 137 territorial communities in 7 regions. And this is around 85% of communities that require survey. I think that I would finalize. And of course, you might see the infrastructure surveyed and cleared. And safety people is a key criteria for us. And we evaluate together with social, economic, and environmental aspect. And final, I would say that this is something interesting I want to share with you, together with our partner, volunteer. So we are trying to use AI to prioritize the mine action activity within the country. And this is interesting slide. You might see that in Kharkiv region, we're trying to evaluate how many children are at risk, how many teachers are at risk, if we put on the map all these mines that we have found. And it would help us to prioritize that land that should be cleared. It would help us to prioritize the risks, and it will help us to actually speed up the process of mine action activity within our country. So we are trying to be innovative. We're trying to use AI. We're trying to use new technologies in the mining activity, and of course we need more partners to join our efforts, because we understand that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon for our country, and it has a huge impact on people's life and on economy. Thank you. And yes, I need to show you a video. I was trying to speed up as much as possible. Video.
The mining of Ukraine is the biggest global challenge since World War II. But at the same time, the most significant progress in this field in the last century. In just 1 year, Ukraine developed its own heavy machine for demining, testing drones and remote land surveying technologies, analyses with AI satellite images and craters from shelling in the soil, implementing a unique data-driven tool for the efficient allocation of limited resources for demining. All this is for the safety of Ukrainians, the safety of Ukrainian fields, the safety of millions of people worldwide. Because the grain harvested in Kharkiv this summer is the bread for counties of the global south in winter. Because every cleared inch of Ukrainian land today is an opportunity for millions of Ukrainians to carry on living in their native land tomorrow.
Madam First Deputy Prime Minister, thank you very much for covering so much, so comprehensively and so efficiently. I think it's really important highlighting the aspect of demining as the zero step for recovery, making it very clear that the government has a plan, and I think also demonstrating some of the really significant progress that has already been made and potential for innovation to further speed that up. So thank you very much for that comprehensive overview. I'd now like to turn to our co-host. Mr. Tobias Lindner is a Minister of State from the German Federal Foreign Office. Now, Germany, as a long-standing partner in mine action and a partner that has stepped up its operations in recent years, perhaps you could give us an overview of what Germany is planning to do to continue to support Ukraine, with the Deputy Prime Minister's mentioned strategic objectives, and maybe what are the most pressing things and what are the things you're looking at from a more long-term perspective. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me, Minister, Excellencies, colleagues, partners, guests. It's an honor to be co-hosting this important panel today with our Ukrainian colleagues. The figures we just heard, the images we just saw, they have made us abundantly clear what we all know. The contamination with explosive ordnance and mines is a deadly danger for Ukraine, a danger inflicting insecurity and pain, much longer than the actual fighting. A danger so massive in scale we haven't seen before, if we are honest. Of two things I'm convinced. Firstly, that we can only confront this situation together, Ukraine and us, international partners, unified in our efforts by a national strategy and priorities based on humanitarian needs and recovery and reconstruction goals. And secondly, now's the time to act. Right now, we have the momentum to lay down the foundations for, and you mentioned it, a long-term, impactful and sustainable humanitarian mine action in Ukraine. And how can we do that? And what will we, the German government, contribute to reaching the Ukrainian strategic goals for mine action just presented by the minister? So first of all, we need multi-annual financial support for humanitarian mine action from the international community, but also through private sector investments and innovative financing approaches. Germany has been supporting humanitarian mine action in Ukraine since 2016. increasing our engagement massively since February 2022. And today I am pleased to announce that for this year, for 2024, the German Federal Foreign Office will dedicate 20 million euro to humanitarian mine action in Ukraine. 7 projects with international partners are currently in different stages of planning and implementation. Several of those projects will continue into the next year with over 4 million euro already dedicated for next year. And over the last few months, our teams in Kiev and Berlin, they have started the process of identifying joint priorities and interests in the upcoming Ukrainian national strategy and the German strategy on humanitarian mine action. Together, we realized that mine victim assistance is among the aspects of mine action that have to be urgently addressed in Ukraine. However, it has received relatively low interest in the international fora so far. And this is why we dedicated to specifically include this aspect on today's agenda. This is why we will continue to bring this topic into discussions about mine action in Ukraine. And this is why Germany has decided to dedicate 1 million euro out of this year's support specifically to a pilot project on mine victim assistance, while at the same committing at least 10% of our support to mine action in Ukraine in the next 2 years to come to victim assistance. Together with our partner, the Danish Refugee Council and Humanitarian Inclusion, we aim at going beyond existing cash assistance, taking a holistic approach to victim assistance, providing services to mine victims from trauma care to physical rehabilitation and psychological support, and strengthening the capacity of local and community-based structures. That's the heart of the pilot project. Sustainable local and national structures are a key word here, because in the end, humanitarian assistance can and should never be the long-term solution, but a decisive step to strong and sustainable national ownership and capacity. And that leads me to my second point. We need to stop thinking in silos. Humanitarian mine action is closely linked to broader humanitarian assistance, but also to stabilization efforts, to physical reconstruction efforts, to the recovery of the agricultural land, to social cohesion. The video we just saw couldn't have made it any clearer, to be honest. It is for this reason that humanitarian mine action is rightly addressed in this conference, as it was last year in London. It allows us to think about links to the broader recovery agenda in the human dimension and beyond. We want to become better as German government in creating and using the synergies between the different aspects of our support, and we call on all partners to do the same individually and as a community. And last but not least, coordination and cooperation are key for long-term success in and through mine action. Minister, you have just laid out very clearly the Ukrainian strategic approach, and we congratulate your government on the very important developments in coordination achieved over the last years and months. My country is a firm supporter of international coordination and cooperation based on the partnership approach among donors, with effective states and communities, and with implementing partners. Ukraine has become an example to follow for a nationally led coordination approach. We've been supporting coordination for mine action in Ukraine politically and financially over the last years, starting from our own G7 presidency and the first donor coordination workshop in Geneva to the second workshop a few weeks ago in Kiev. This will continue. We will continue this engagement and stand ready to support the next partner coordination workshop and other fora. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to end by reiterating our appreciation for all the work of our Ukrainian colleagues and friends, the international partners and mine action implementers. Together we can make a difference today and in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minister, for that intervention, which really highlights a couple of very key points. I mean, this issue of partnership is obviously very, very important as we strive together to ensure that Ukraine is made safe, or the risks of this massive problem are addressed. I also thought the issue of momentum, the multi-year aspect, and trying to ensure sustainability came out very clearly, and also that link to broader agendas and the way that mine action isn't just siloed, but it actually affects everything else, which I think goes back to Ms. Svyrydenko's point about the zero step for recovery. So thank you very much. We're now going to move deliberately to sort of more granular intervention from a civil society actor, Charlotte Slente. We're lucky to have us here as the Secretary General of Danish Refugee Council, an international civil society organisation with a mandate for mine action, but also a much broader mandate looking at emergency response through to long-term recovery. And could I ask, Madam Secretary General, what you, from your perspective and experience in Ukraine, what is required from government actors to play an active role in the humanitarian mine action sphere, and maybe building on something the Minister just said, maybe something specific about the victim assistance and how that all works. Over to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation to be here today. We are very happy about that. We are extremely pleased with the good cooperation that we have with the Ukrainian authorities on mine clearance in Ukraine, and we are very appreciative of the generous support from various governments, also governments represented here, including the GFFO, for mine clearance activities that we support in Ukraine. We as an agency have been clearing mines for over 25 years globally, and we've been doing so in Ukraine since 2014, which means before the full-blown invasion 2.5 years back. But since the invasion, we have been clearing thousands of square meters of land for productive use, and we have also been identifying hazardous areas covering millions of square feet of land. We have delivered sessions on explosive ordnance risk to around 70,000 people, and we've been training hundreds of teachers to engage in mine risk education. Because mine mine issues is about risks for people. It's not only about weapons. I'd like to stress maybe 3 or 4 main points here. One is, demining needs to have people at the center is one key message. The other second key message that I'd like to deliver is that for demining to be efficient, as the State Minister said, it needs to be a coordinated approach and a coordinated effort. And thirdly, we need to do this right, not only to do it fast, but to do it right. And fourthly, I'd like to speak very briefly about mine victim assistance. So putting people at the center, it's about saving people's lives, of course, and protecting their futures. An endeavor that goes beyond restored infrastructure and beyond recovery of the economic benefits of cleared farmland. So far, over 32,000 people, civilians, have been killed or maimed by explosive weapons in Ukraine since February 2022. And this includes 1,200 casualties of from explosive ordnance. Those most affected are those last equipped or worst equipped to deal with it, and the most vulnerable. And among them, obviously, children who are at particular risk. Those working the land are obviously at risk. They often face a choice between a loss of income for themselves and their families and taking lethal risk going to work in their fields. For the displaced people, the clearance of mines and unexploded ordnance impedes safe returns for people to their villages and their towns where the fighting and the bombardment have taken place, and it hinders, it hinders reconstruction in those places. So without effective mine action, there is no safe return for people, and there is no feeling of safety for people. So humanitarian mine action is about people and safety for people, not only about the weapons that we need to clear. My second point on the need for coordinated efforts. DRC reaches most people, and we achieve most when we do it in a coordinated manner and when we coordinate demining work with other types of recovery work. An example of that is communities in Ivankiv, north of Kiev, where we have cleared mines, but where we also gave economic recovery grants to farmers to rebuild their sheds and rebuy agricultural assets that they had lost. We refurbished schools that had been cleared of mines. We provided water pipes to help restore access to key infrastructure. So mine action works best when it's integrated with other humanitarian work like this, because that allows actually displaced people to return and resume their economic activities, and it allows people who have not left the territory to resume their economic activities. And this means that we need to put in place partnerships and planning architecture to do it in a coordinated manner, effectively and widely, also across government departments of Ukraine moving ahead. My third point is about needing to do this right. I mean, and there's no shortcuts when you deal with mine clearance. We need to do more, we need to do better, and we need to do faster than even before. That means building the capacity and fielding it faster. And Ukraine has actually built demining capacity at a record pace, I would say. But we need to do it right at every stage to be effective by working to set standards and working meticulously and accurately according to those standards. If we do inaccurate assessments, for example, whether they are over or under the actual contamination, that is, detrimental to our work, and poor clearance is a waste of resources and it's a waste of time. New technologies, as you also spoke to, Minister, can help here. We should firmly embrace new technologies and build partnerships to develop them. We are, as an agency, DRC is triangling drone-based sensors and AI for detection, for example. But we must do fast and we must do this well. We'll fail in the long term if we take shortcuts now on the clearance. And then lastly, and that's my last point, and it's the question regarding victim assistance that the State Minister also addressed. Victim assistance plays a crucial role because, as I already mentioned, this is about people. Victim assistance in Ukraine is at now under-resourced compared to other areas of humanitarian mine action, and the scale of the challenge is increasing as the conflict continues. The increase in casualty means that there are more people with complex injuries and permanent impairments that require much more specialized support than what is delivered today. Support for rehabilitation, support for mental health, but also support for merely replacing limbs that have been destroyed by the mines. Ukraine needs more technical expertise to deal with this increasing problem. So support to victims and survivors of explosive ordnance needs to be included in support to the clearance that we see. We as an agency, DRC, has taken first steps to help bring the victim assistance stakeholders, including the government of Ukraine, international donors, and Ukrainian civil society actors together in regular coordination roundtables in Ukraine. This, we believe, will help connect Ukraine's demining work with specialist support from medical services, from educators, from mental health and community-level support systems in a way that will be needed for long-term and also long-term after the conflict has ended and the demining is complete. So victim assistance, we see it as key to an integrated mine action response in Ukraine and to recovery of the individuals at community level as well. So my final remarks here is that humanitarian mine action is a prerequisite for a swift recovery of Ukraine. And with the support and commitment of its partners, we have an opportunity now to put in place a strong and effective mine action program with people at its center. This will enable Ukraine to address the problem in a matter of years and not decades or centuries. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Secretary General, for all the points you made there. I mean, I think you said a lot, but people, not weapons, that really clearly came out. But also this issue of having to develop mine action programming and design it at the inception phase to link into broader agendas, so that we know that we're covering more ground and not siloing ourselves. And of course, the continued focus on the victims, the people that are actually being affected by these ordinances day by day. So thank you so much for that intervention. I'm now going to hand the floor over to our next speaker, who is Alexandre Lévêque. Alexandre is the Assistant Deputy Minister for Europe, Arctic, Middle East and Maghreb, I think, at Global Affairs, Canada. Now, Canada is obviously a significant supporter of Mine Action and has been for a long time. You support both national capacity building but also operational programming. And all of this is, of course, influenced by Canada's feminist international foreign policy. I wonder if you could briefly give us an overview of what your plan for supporting Ukraine is, and how is the broader commitment to women, peace and security agenda influencing this and your thinking? Over to you, sir.
Thank you, and thank you for this great opportunity to be on this panel and to address this critical issue. It was a stark reminder to hear of the human impact in the Deputy Prime Minister's remarks in the video, but also in the exhibit just outside the hall. I've seen these prosthetic legs. A graphic reminder of how this is affecting Ukrainians right now, and something that you really see underplayed in mainstream media, but also the very poignant comments that were made about the fact that this mining and demining efforts affect so much more than Ukrainians, because it is the productivity of land ultimately that needs to be returned to full and maximized levels. What I'd like to do is just spend a couple of minutes talking about, as you situated, the interplay between Mine Action and the overall women, peace and security efforts. But obviously, Canada has been a leader and very focused on demining for almost 30 years now. You'll remember the 1997 Ottawa Convention, the Anti-Personnel Landmine Convention. So this has been an area of focus and expertise in Canada for very long. And actually, we've been involved in demining in Ukraine since 2015. Totally, the total investments that have been made between 2015 and up to the full-scale invasion of Russia was about $80 million. Now, I'm happy to announce today that Canada will make further contributions and an additional $5 million to Tetra Tech, bringing our contribution to this U.S.-led initiative to $12.5 million. More announcements will be made in the coming days. I've stayed this long in this job by knowing that I shouldn't upstage or scoop my prime minister. So there's things coming up that will give him an opportunity to make more announcements, but particularly to support the Mines Advisory Group, which works in partnership with the Ukrainian Deminers Association. Canada's approach to mine action in Ukraine is two-pronged. Number one, we focus on strengthening national mine action capacity. And number two, we advance the efforts of international and national NGOs to carry out survey clearance, risk education, et cetera, et cetera. We're also promoting the mainstreaming of gender equality across all of our mine action interventions. And this is, as you mentioned, against the backdrop of our feminist international assistance policy and overall support to the women, peace and security agenda. The way we do this is twofold. First of all, we ensure that our partners undertake a gender-based analysis of their planned mine action intervention. And this is, by the way, an approach that we have across all development activities and all domestic activities. We've now adopted gender budgeting, which means that every budget request needs to include a GBA plus analysis, and we apply this to partners to implement mine action as well. And then number two, we insist that our partners integrate not only the findings of their analysis, but also directly address the barriers to gender equality in how they carry out their activities. Why is this important? Well, first of all, because landmine and other explosive remnants of war impact men, women, boys and girls differently based on their roles in society. And consulting widely across different community groups leads to more informed decisions and better training, more effective and efficient risk education, survey and clearance. Number two, we know from experience that a wide number of mine-affected, that in a wide number of mine-affected contexts, explosive ordinances and the risk education that comes with it is most effective when it is age-appropriate, gender-appropriate, gender-sensitive, and targets more those that are most at risk. And for example, in Ukraine, we know that the groups that are at highest risk of being injured or killed are adolescent and adult men. So training needs to be catered to that. However, having said this, globally, mine action is a very male-dominated sector. And so, given the underrepresentation of women in operational and policy roles, the employment of women in this sector, if it is to be increased, will contribute to women's economic empowerment, which is obviously central and really links back to the previous panel here on gender equality. So, in a way, focusing on the employment of women in mine action in Ukraine has the potential to challenge negative stereotypes and gender norm and really increase the economic value and value proposition of women. I want to give just a couple of examples of how some of the efforts being undertaken by some of our partners on the ground are reflected. First of all, the HALO Trust and the Mines Advisory Group, which I referred to earlier, are making a concerted effort to recruit from affected communities, tailor job advertisements toward women, and ensure that all hiring interviews are conducted by gender diverse and gender sensitive recruitment panels. The goal here is to improve the meaningful representation and participation of women, particularly in leadership and in decision-making positions. Second example, HALO introduced a childcare support stipend for working mothers and single fathers employed by the organization. Again, this is a common practice across the world to increase participation in labor market, particularly for women who have been carrying more of the burden of child raising. So, in addition to their monthly salary, and in recognition of the fact that child care provision and parental leave is more of a burden on women, this initiative provides additional revenue and support, particularly for women in this situation. And thirdly, to support the progression of women within their organization and increase the number of female staff among their senior management, our partners are also offering numerous training opportunities, and particularly, like I said, in decision-making and in leadership position. I'll finish on the following thought, just to conclude with an obvious statement. Women in Ukraine face additional burdens because of the war. That's been well reflected and well documented. They also play a vital role in the defense of their country and in shaping the future. And mine action is a sector that makes important contributions to peace and security, has the potential to unlock greater opportunities for women and augmenting their participation in rebuilding their communities. And for that reason, this is an area of support that will remain an area of support, as I've alluded to, and more announcements to be made in the coming days. Thank you.
I mean, thank you very much for that intervention. So I think it was a really good overview of how Canada is contributing to mine action in Ukraine and more broadly. I mean, very good to hear that you're specifically taking on the important piece about women, peace and security, but also that you've actually highlighted some of the technical advantages and efficiencies that can be gained by actually thinking quite carefully about who your audience is and how different people are affected differently by these munitions. And of course, it's always good to hear that there are more resources already committed and will be coming, so thank you so much for highlighting that. I'm now going to hand over to our final speaker, Ambassador Danzi, Patricia Danzi, who's the Director General of the Swiss Development Cooperation. My question to you, Madam, is how does this panel's reflection on human capital resonate with the Swiss humanitarian tradition? And given that mine action is now such a high priority for Switzerland, with a package of over 100 million euros dedicated until 2027, what priorities are you setting to determine your interventions over the next few years? Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity. I can actually agree on many, many things that have been said, and many of the things that have my previous speakers underlined are also in the priorities that Switzerland has set with the coordination and cooperation in Ukraine and with Ukraine. So maybe one point that is missing, I haven't heard so much of, is when we have to talk about humanitarian demining as such, at least as far as landmines are concerned, we have actually failed as an international community, because we have failed to protect the civilian population, we have failed to have respected international humanitarian law, and we have also failed that the adherence to the Treaty of Ottawa, I'm unfortunately old enough to remember it, was a treaty to ban landmines. And many of the countries sitting here and also represented here have signed that treaty. Also, Ukraine has, Russia hasn't. So we will have to first also make sure that what we have all signed up for is respected, and maybe that was an element that was a bit missing, and that I would like to introduce also to that panel. When we are there, what I liked and what Switzerland also stands for is that we put the human in the center. You mentioned the 6.1 million Ukrainians that are now at risk of being injured by mines and unexploded ordnance. We definitely believe, as Charlotte also highlighted, the holistic approach to it. It's a prevention approach, rehabilitation, hard and soft components have to be married intelligently so that it makes sense for the people and for the Ukrainian government. We also have, and I would like to underline this as well, the environmental aspect of it. We had the Kakova Dam that burst. Many of the mines and unexploded ordnances floated away into land that no one knows exactly where it is. And these are issues that will impact many of Ukrainians in the future, and also in the recovery, reconstruction, and the environmental damage for Ukraine is very, very big and has to be taken care of as well. When we talk about the economy, it's important to have the big agro-business going on to produce, to export, but we must not forget the small farmers that have just their gardens, the single-headed households, the mothers that plow the fields, and they also have to deal with the remnants of what is happening right now. We stand for international, local, in a joint programming. And so Switzerland has also, of course, the Geneva International Center for Humanitarian Demining, which our skilled moderator is a member of. And we have also organizations that do the demining, and we work together with them. And international partners like yourself, WFP, FAO, UNDP and others with Ukraine and in Ukraine. And the local authorities, CESU, for example, has received support from Switzerland and is also doing such a great job. Without it, many of the efforts that you have shown us were not possible at all. Important, long-term. You mentioned it all, the long-term commitment of partners, important for Ukraine and for Ukrainians. Switzerland has an advantage there. We have been working in Ukraine since over 30 years. We know many of the authorities, also local authorities, that have to take tough decisions these days as well. We have foreseen 5 billion euros over the next 12 years to support Ukraine, not in the military field because we are Switzerland, but in all the other sectors. That includes mine action. The 100 million for the next 4 years in mine action is also underpinning an effort. The road to Berlin goes on, as the State Minister said. It will lead us to Lausanne. So take out your agenda for the 17th and 18th of October. We will be in Lausanne discussing mine action in a very holistic way, soft and hard skills, soft and hard components, in also the spirit of the Lugano principles, that is inclusion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Danzi, for that overview. Even the sobering section about the inherent failure, given that this is still a problem and something that we'll continually need to think about, but also covering the holistic approach, really bringing in those issues such as environment, and again talking about partnerships. I'm really pleased to hear a mention of all of the international actors and partners that are here today, but the work of the State Emergency Services of Ukraine, which I think we can all agree has been fantastic and immense under really, really difficult circumstances. So thank you very much for that intervention. We now have planned a series of interventions from the floor. We have a very short time left, so could I please ask the speakers to stick to the 1 minute that has been allocated to them. And first and foremost, I'd like to invite Mr. Michael Vasaro, who is, Deputy Assistant Secretary of State, to give an intervention from over there. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. It's a great honor to have this opportunity to make an intervention today. The United States is committed to supporting Ukraine's demining priorities. We have provided $182 million since February 2022, and we expect to announce additional funding later this year. Our largest investment is training and equipment for deminers in the Ministry of Defense and Ministry of Internal Affairs. Our joint project with Canada has trained more than 850 personnel to date. Building the capacity of government deminers is a key aspect of Ukraine's mine action strategy. In addition to improving safety and efficiency, it also reduces long-term reliance on international aid. Since our project started in October 22, we have focused on foundational training for new personnel, helping Ukraine expand its demining operations nationwide. Moving forward, we plan to transition to more advanced EOD and train the trainer courses so that Ukraine's own training programs are world-class. We look forward to coordinating this work with Ukraine and the international community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for highlighting the massive contribution of your country, and thank you so much for keeping to time. That's very, very helpful. Our next speaker is the Director of Ukrainian Deminers Association. The floor is yours, Timur Pistra. Please go ahead.
Unfortunately, Ukraine has the largest number of mine victims around the world for past 2 years. In Ukraine Demining Association MBA database, we have already registered more than 2,500 victims, and they have urgent needs for support. Let me kindly remind you that MBA is not just one-time assistance. It shall be comprehensive and sustainable support with the aim of reintegration of survivors into normal life. I'll give you one example. Dmitro Slepkany, who became a victim on an insidious Russian mine and completely lost his sight, received help from UDA. Later, he expressed his desire to work in our team and was recruited. Having studied special application and software for the blind, he is currently working at the same level as the rest of UDA staff and provided assistance for mine victims. As Dmitro says, he is really happy that his little child, 4 months old, who will go to school later, when someone asks him, "Who is your father?" he will not say, "My father is disabled," but he will proudly say that my father works in Ukrainian Deminers Association and helps people. Thank you.
Wow. Timur, thank you so much for that. It's great to hear those stories and great to continue working with you and your teams in Ukraine. Our next speaker is the Director General for the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency, Mr. Jacob Granit. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Let me first of all just thank the Deputy Prime Minister for the intervention on the mining action strategy. It provides really a forum for coordination, which we have heard so much about. SIDA has supported mine action in Ukraine since 2018 and have redoubled our efforts since the full-scale invasion. Through funding, equipment, personnel and expertise through the Swedish Civil Contingency Agency and partners such as UNDP, UNOPS, the Danish Refugee Council, the World Food Programme and the Partnership Fund for Resilient Ukraine. Today, I'm pleased to announce additional support to the Swedish Civil Contingency Agency as part of a 3-year program, focusing on supporting Ukrainian government partners, including the National Police of Ukraine and State Transport Special Services, Through this support, these government partners will enhance their capacity to train their own EOD units on humanitarian demining. The additional support of 95 million Swedish krona, $9 million, brings our total support to 464 million, about $44 million since February 2022. And let me also say that in terms of the support to victims, we are also exploring now how we can enhance our support to the health sector, in particular mine victims. Thank you.
Thank you so much for highlighting yet more support to the Ukrainian program. I'm being rushed for time, so could I hand over quickly to our next speaker, Jacko Sillers, who is the UNDP resident representative in Ukraine. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, colleagues, and it's really nice to be here. Let me just briefly say that I really want to thank also First Deputy Prime Minister Svyrydenko for being here. I know she's leaving, but she's a stand pillar or a standing example for what leadership is and how to also strengthen the coordination efforts that's already taking place, which is really very important, and it's a privilege to work with them. UNDP is very privileged to work with many of the donors and countries here in this room. We have 14 donor partners and a capacity of about $50 million for mine action initiatives and programs. We're very proud to work very much on strengthening national capacity, so our efforts goes into strengthening both the national capacities and organizations throughout Ukraine so that they can also do the work and can continue to lead also this very important work. Let me maybe just highlight 3 areas that's already been kind of mentioned, but I think is really crucial as we move forward. First is really innovation. We very much appreciate the role of innovation, investing in that, both in technologies with CESU for both large-scale computers, but also artificial intelligence, as well as drone technology. Through that, we've already analyzed 94,000 square kilometers of mined or contaminated areas, which I think will be very quickly released once the kind of process moves into place. The second is victim assistance. We're also looking at new models because we need to develop new models. If you know, through the RDNA, 7% of people with disabilities. There's an increase of 7% of people with disabilities throughout Ukraine. It's basically because of unexploded ordnances and mines. So how to do victim assistance right is going to be important. And lastly, we also believe in future financing, that it's not a short-term financing aspect. So also together with the UK, the Netherlands, and the Swiss, we are working on innovative financing technologies that can also look at long-term financing for this massive challenge that we face in Ukraine. Thank you very much, and also thanks to so many partners helping this important area.
Jacko, thank you very much for that. And yes, I'm afraid our Deputy Prime Minister has had to leave. I think we can all appreciate all the pressures on her time and the amount that she's been asked to do today. So thank you to her and accommodate that. We have a couple more speakers. I think we have time for the last 2. Yeah, I'm getting a nod. Could I then invite Ms. Ros Eels? Ros is the Director for the Eastern Europe and Central Asia Department at the UK Foreign and Commonwealth Development Office. You have the floor.
Thank you so much. So the UK, like Germany and others, have been supporting demining in Ukraine for a long time, since 2016. And of course, we've scaled up our interventions since the invasion. We see demining as a vital enabler, very much echoing Deputy Prime Minister's views as a zero step for inclusive recovery across Ukraine. Very much welcome the forthcoming national strategy, and important as donors that we get behind that through sustained commitment and by leveraging additional funding through the application of innovative financing mechanisms and working with UNDP and others on that. I think we recognise that recruitment and retention is a challenge during this conflict, and very much echo Alexandre's words on the importance of recruiting female staff into operational and non-operational roles, and increasingly leadership roles as well, which is very important. And finally, applaud the efforts of operators to recruit veterans. The UK supporting Halo's work in Ukraine, who are in turn working with veterans organisations, Superhumans and Unbroken. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that intervention. I think we had one final speaker who was en route. They are here, so please can I give the floor to Juha Avinen, who's the head of the unit Neighbourhood, Middle East, Southwest and Central Asia Department at ECHO. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, Chair. I would like to once again highlight the impressive progress that our Ukrainian partners are making in their demining effort. In less than a year, Ukraine has been able to assess and remove a territory 3 times the size of Lebanon of land suspected of contamination. This is now ready for safe, productive use again. This progress is also a testimony to the success that can be achieved when the different stakeholders within Ukraine and the international partners come together to rally behind one common goal. To maximize the impact of support, it also remains crucial to ensure the availability of effective mine action operators through finding the best way to deal with accreditation and explosives management. Sustained and predictable international support is essential. The EU, together with its member states, will continue to stand by Ukraine in face of this important challenge. The EU will pursue its humanitarian and emergency funding, as well as in-kind assistance through the EU Civil Protection Mechanism. We will continue to support our Ukrainian partners on innovative approaches to mine action, and we will also continue exploring options for Team Europe approaches and cooperation with European financial institutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, which is, I think, our final intervention from the floor. We've covered a lot and we've done it very efficiently. I'm afraid we will not have time to take further questions, but just to sort of very briefly summarize the fact that humanitarian mine action really is a step zero for recovery and reconstruction has come out very clearly, that the issue is ultimately about people, the people that are affected, the victims, the survivors, but also the people that are designing the responses and dealing with the problem, and this continued importance of building momentum, coordination and partnership. And I think we have a next step on that, which will be a conference in the UMAC conference in Lausanne in Switzerland later on in the year, and I hope that we'll be able to take up more of these discussions at the right level there. Just finally, from my side, I'd like to thank all of the panelists, all of those who intervened, but also take a moment to thank the interpreters and the technical team who've been fantastic, not just for this session, but throughout under really strenuous circumstances. Thank you so much. The next panel will be in 15 minutes in this room, focusing on education, science, and innovation in time of war. Thanks a lot, and goodbye.
Thank you. I'm running to the parliament.
Good luck.
I'm just meeting you.